Hey, how's it going? So, I just want to talk about a very interesting topic or aspect of life that I really find fascinating, and this is the working of the mind. So, the way that our minds are actually wired is very interesting and so complex and detailed that I can't dismiss life as a mistake. So I think everything that happens is meant to happen in the way that it's actually unfolding. So when I look at someone like Sigmund Freud or Carl Jung, I actually, all right, to some extent, I actually agree with Sigmund Freud when he says that sex is everything. And this is something that I talk about in the video entitled Sex is Everything. But then, I'm not on like the same wavelength as he is in terms of that. But I do agree that sex is everything because sex is actually knowledge. So when they say that Adam and Eve knew each other, they're actually talking about sex. And when they're talking about knowledge, they're talking about sex, carnal knowledge. So this knowledge is actually the knowledge that gives us all of the other information in existence. So this is information that we have and that builds our consciousness or our consciences. So when we have the word conscious, what we're talking about is being awake. So when you're woke, when you're conscious, when you're awake, when you're not sleeping, it means that you're just conscious. So being conscious is being awake, right? And the other thing is having a conscience is to have the word which is connect. So this is when you connect science, conscience. So this is the still small voice. So this is conscience. So when we say conscious, we're saying awake. When we say conscience, we're saying awake as well. So when you say conscience, what we're saying is science, and science is knowledge, information, and awareness. And when we say conscious, we're actually just saying conscience. So these two things are the same, but they apply like two sides of a coin, heads or tails. So when we're talking about science, what we're talking about is knowledge, awareness, wisdom, sapiency, if there's such a thing, but being sapient, being knowledgeable, being aware, and having understanding. So science is information, and information is inside formation. So information is how you're formed inside as a person. Just like when a butterfly gets into a cocoon, it gets information because it's formed inside the cocoon and then it explodes as a beautiful butterfly. So the same thing happens when you get information, it comes into you and then it explodes as a beautiful butterfly after a certain amount of time. Information is inward formation. Information is to move in a certain formation. So like how an army moves in a certain formation that is being directed by a general. So general is GENERAL, and general is GENE something something. General is GENE. General is a gene. So this gene has your actual information, which you get through sex, and sex is everything. So general is how you just get the person who commands an army to move in a certain formation. This general is a gene. This gene is how you are generally made up. And this gene has all of the genetic information inside of you, which creates this formation out of you as an organism. So it's very interesting how you can actually begin to see that this information, how we're actually made, is actually a science. And this science is actually in the mind or in our consciousness, in our awareness. This is the science that governs how we relate to each other and how we relate to the world that is around us. So through this awareness, through this information, we're able to get all of the things that come out of the mind. So we have this knowledge, and through this knowledge, what we have is KNOW, knowledge. Silent K, so let's just say invisible K, we have now. So knowledge is something that you can use now. So knowledge is something that is current. So knowledge is a currency. A currency is knowledge. So our knowledge that the bank is going to honor a debt gives us a currency, fiat currency. But knowledge is a current. This current is power. So knowledge is power. Knowledge is also purchasing power. But a currency is actually power. A currency is how we actually have purchasing power. So a current in your electricity supplies, that's a current of energy, and that is actually now, or knowledge. So knowledge is anything that you can use right now. But you have to be able to couple your knowledge with wisdom and understanding. So wisdom is called wit dominion or wit dominance. So having wisdom is to be able to dominate with your wits. So when we're talking about wisdom, what we have is a way of you looking at the world, using your mind or your wits in a way that enhances the things that you want to do. So this is something that gives you an idea of the right thing to do and the wrong thing to do. So when we talk about conscience, we're talking about con and science. We're talking about coming together in science, coming together of knowledge. So when we talk about conscience, we also have to talk about the morality, or the ability to know right and wrong. And right actually just means straight. Wrong, the same as ring, which is to twist your clothes, like you wring your clothes, which is twisted. So right is straight, wrong is twisted. So you have to know this through wisdom. This is what wisdom is there for, so that you can use your consciousness or your conscience in knowledge of what to do right now. So when you have the ability to know what is right and what is wrong, you have this discernment quality, which is a power of discernment. It's a power. So this is why now knowledge is power. So all of the knowledge that we get dominates in our wits. In our wits is where we get the W-I-T, wit, which is the W-I-T-C-H, witch. So a witch is someone who has wit in order to dominate in a certain area. So witches are people with a lot of knowledge. So we have a witch and we have a whiz, someone who is a whiz kid, right? A whiz is actually just a wizard. So this wizard is a person who just has a lot of information. So this wizard would be someone like the dudes in Lord of the Rings, the guys with the long white beards. I don't know why none of them were black though, but the guys with the long white beards were wizards, and they were able to dominate in their wits, but they were actually all philosophers. So philosopher is philo and Sophie. Philo is love, and Sophie is Sophia, love of Sophia. There's a certain woman that every man loves and every woman loves. This is the mother of all. This is wisdom. She's called Sophia. So this is the wisdom personified. So Sophia is this energy of wisdom. It's actually just literally wisdom. So every philosopher is wise, and all of those philosophers that I was just referencing to are people who love wisdom. So they are wizards, and if they're females, they happen to be witches, because it's all about the wit dominion, wit dominance. So all of these philosophers are people who are looking for this love of wisdom. So they are philosophers. Philosophy, love of wisdom. So this is where we get the wizards. This is where we get the witches. So you have to know that this is true, that there was always the war between the good and the evil, the black and the white. So there's all of that. There's white magic, there's black magic. Ask Elijah, who called fire from heaven. That is what, it's a certain, someone would call it magic. It's not really magic, it's a miracle. Yeah, but then like that is actually what it is. And if you look at the people who first knew about Jesus's birth, because they have wit, wisdom, and understanding, are called magi, which is magician, magi, magic. So you just have to know this. And at the same time, you also have Moses, who was going up against magicians, because these magicians wanted to show their power, which was less than the power of the Almighty God. But then Moses is a very interesting guy. So he's a guy with like a stick or something. Someone would, just like a stick, he has a beard also, just like those guys in Lord of the Rings, isn't he? And then he has this stick that turns into a snake and this huge coat. He just looks like one of those guys in Lord of the Rings. That's Moses. And he was probably black. But that's besides the point. So when we have this wisdom. We have wizards, we have witches, and whatever they're doing is whatever they're doing. But everything that they're doing is based on knowledge, it's based on understanding and information. So through this knowledge and understanding, what they're using is science. So you have to know that this is science, conscience, conscious, knowledge, wisdom, science. So science is something that's being taken over in this information age as being something that is actually not. But science is very powerful and it's actually knowledge. So when we look at this, what we're talking about are philosophers. Philosophers are people who love wisdom and have a lot of knowledge. So these philosophers are people who were looking for what we call the philosopher's stone. So in looking for this philosopher's stone, what they were trying to do was to create gold out of base metals. So through this, their knowledge led them to this science called chemistry. So this chemistry comes from a land called Kemet. So this land called Kemet is Egypt, or ancient Egypt, a bigger area, smaller, bigger. Right, it's above Kush. Like Egypt, Kemet was there, Kush was there, and different empires in that area were there. But then Kemet was this area where they developed this science. So these people from Kemet came from the southern part of Africa, and from the lower regions of Africa, which is where they get their understanding of chemistry from. So all of chemistry comes from Kemet, comes from Egypt, comes from Africa, and all of the alchemists are practicing African arts, just as like Sir Isaac Newton, who was a very dedicated alchemist. So I reference him because he was the last real alchemist, and he was actually into a lot of different things, but he was an alchemist, and all of these alchemists were trying to make money, and then they try to do all these things by creating all of these different mixtures and stuff like that. So what you see when you actually look at this is that these people were actually just trying to do something through the chemistry, and through the chemistry is what is still happening everywhere today. So these alchemists are still there in Africa, they're still there in different parts of the world, they're still there as wizards, as witches, as witch doctors, as just different types of people. They are still there. These people are still there, and they have different clothes, but they're still there. Different. They're just still there. They're just still there, and they've always been there. And they've always been good ones. They've always been bad ones. So, when we're looking at this, we have to realize that everything has the duality, right? But so what they were doing is that they wanted to create a way to turn this into that. So through the science, they got it from different parts of Africa, and this is still happening in Africa. That there are still people who do certain things like this through the mixtures, through their potions, and through different things. So when they have a potion, what they're doing in alchemy is that they have a potion, which is just like a serum, which is like a syrup. This is what they do in the pharmaceutical companies. Pharmaceutical companies are chemetic, they are alchemists, they are chemistry. So if you are taking a pill, you're actually taking a pill from this source. This is what it's all about. So is a pill evil? Is a pill not evil? This is the same thing that I'm talking about. So all of the medicine that we take, or actually most of it, unless you're taking natural medicine, which is from the plants, which is actually what they actually use, which is the Kemetic science, that they actually use actual roots from actual plants and actual things from the actual nature in order to create tonics and toxins. So when you create a tonic, you create something that heals. When you create a toxic, you create something that kills. So the only difference is the proportion in the potion, which creates a potency. So the potency was created by the different weights and proportions. So through this potion, they're able to gain a portion of your power. So these portions are created in order to gain something. So everything that is happening is that it is centered around getting power. So at first it was that currency, the gold. Now it's another currency, whatever it is. So it's all about something that gives power. And we all have the image and likeness of God, who is all powerful. So we all have that desire for power, which is something that is insane. But then this is why, like, very few people would say no to power. But the vast majority might say no, like, I wouldn't want power, but give them a little bit of power and see what they do. So this is the science of it, and this is how it actually works. That so these witches are wit dominions, right? They dominate in the wits. So when you have wit, you have WTICH, and then we're just gonna add an S to it, and then we'll see that a witch is actually a switch. So a switch is something that controls the electric currents. You remember, current is now, which is knowledge, which is a currency. So a switch controls currents. So this current controls power. This current is a switch. This current is a witch. So witches are switches. So they're able to switch on and off. So they're able to turn you on. They're able to turn you off. So this ability is limited, of course, because you have power endowed in you. So your mind, your wit is also where you dominate, and you're able to create these switches. So this is why you're able to do what you want to do. You like switch your body on, you switch it off. You're like, all right, I want to do this, and you do that. This is how you're actually using this. But what they're doing is that they're using potions, potency, like powers, to proportionally take a portion of someone else's power, so they get more powerful. So this is what they're actually doing through the currents, so currencies, which is actually the spiritual currency is actually they're using blood. So this blood is sometimes the sacrifice to God to say that, hey, give me doves or give me things like that. And this is where you actually see a lot of these things happening in the Old Testament. In the New Testament, the currency, the knowledge is different, because now we have a different God. So in the Old Testament you have Yahweh or Yahuwah, and then in the New Testament you have Jesus or Yeshua. So you have a different currency. So you have to know that the now is different, but the whole science is the same. So Yeshua was actually visited by magi or magicians who came, the wise men who came from the east. When we're talking about this switches, we're also looking at the story of Solomon, that when Solomon got wise, when he was actually tested for being wise, he had a case that was brought before him. There were two women who were asleep one night, and then one of the women, who was a witch, took her baby that she crushed over when she was sleeping, and she switched her baby with another baby, which is she took a portion of the other baby. Maybe she even gave the woman another portion or potion, who knows? But then she switched like a witch, because she is a witch. And then she came before Solomon, who is wise, who has wit. And then through his wit, he was able to discern and judge righteously, right and wrong. And then he gave the baby to the right woman. So this is how it actually works, that witches are switches. So she switched the baby overnight, and this is how they actually work. They switch things, maybe sometimes while you're sleeping, maybe sometimes while you're not sleeping, but it's always a switch. So knowing this is knowing that wisdom, what Solomon used, is something that is going to come to your aid. Wisdom is very important, and this is how he was able to determine what to do. So the same thing is happening, that you have to be able to dominate in your wits, to know what is being switched, what is straight and what is crooked, what is wrong, what is right and what is wrong. So this is something that you really have to know and to really understand, because this life is all about power. All about power. Every breath you're taking, you're switching good in air for bad air. So these witches are working in such a way in order to get power, in order to get dominance and things like that. So your knowledge is what's going to save you. So knowledge is power, and knowledge will reign supreme if you know exactly what is going on. So knowledge is consciousness and science. Knowledge is all of this stuff. So So when we're talking about witches, we're just talking about that. So we're talking about this ability. So a switch, you also need to know that a switch is also just a long, thin stick. That is also a switch. That is what is really called. So these sticks or staffs or wands are able to control people's energy. So this is why Moses had a staff. He just had a stick. That's all he had. So that stick is a switch. So this is what he was able to split the sea with, because he was able to do that with a switch, with a twig. So these twigs are these wands. So this is how our minds are being switched by the holy wood, Hollywood, which is actually just another stick. You just switch on the TV and then you're programmed in your mind. You start switching your opinions. So this also has this type of effect on people. So you just have to know that everything out there is actually governed by different forces and different powers. So these are potent energies that create certain potions. So some of these potions are not created in a pot or cauldron, but they're also created in your mind. Your mind is actually just excreting chemicals day in and day out. Right now, as you're watching this, your brain is being stimulated in other areas that it's not usually stimulated in, and that's why you're still watching this long, because it's actually releasing chemicals in your brain. When you see someone you like or someone you love, you have chemicals released in your brain. So all of these are potions. All of these are potent. When you see someone you don't like, all of these potent chemicals are being released and in different proportions. So this creates the tonic or the toxic. So thanks a lot for watching this, and this is just an understanding of what this actually means, and how you can actually navigate through this. So thank you a lot for watching this, and just claim your power back, and just know that it's all in your wits and how you accumulate knowledge and understanding. We live in an information age, and the only currency, the only power is your knowledge. So just keep that in mind, and yeah. And in addition to this, you can also watch the video that says sex is everything. You can watch that one, and How Solomon Got Wise, which talks about dreams as well. And yeah, so all of these videos I'll link below this video, and in the links below you're also going to see some of the things that I've published and produced. So I hope that you can get down with that, and then just see what's up with that, and I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that you can support me as I'm supporting you in your life and in your growth. I really do appreciate your yeah, your participation in my growth, and I'm also excited about your growth. So thank you a lot for watching this, and I'll see you soon.